Call to order this meeting of the Thompson-Nicola Regional District for Thursday, October the 23rd, 2025. The TNRD acknowledges that we connect with many First Nations communities across our vast regional district. And today we are located on the Tk'emlúps-Secwépemc territory, situated within the unceded ancestral lands of the Secwépemc Nation. The TNRD appreciates the partnership we have with Tk'emlúps-Secwépemc, and we respect the territory and land upon which we gather today. I'm prepared to welcome alternate director Nancy Beppel when she arrives. She did text to say she's running a little bit late. She will be here on my left for Director O'Reilly, who is still away having a wonderful time in Europe. Directors attending via Zoom. We have Director O'Toole from Sun Peaks via Zoom. Hello, Director O'Toole. Hello. All right, library update. The Thompson-Nicola Regional Library is excited to launch its new catalog, Vega Discover, which will make searching the library's diverse collections easier than ever before. Highlights include a user-friendly design that displays different formats of the same title together, digital collection integration so that you can borrow your favorite Libby titles directly from the catalog, and personalized lists to better organize your to-be-read titles. For more information, please visit tnrl.ca. Congratulations belatedly to Darren Robinson, a utilities technologist for the TNRD who retired last Friday. Darren spent 17 years happily maintaining the Pritchard sewer plant. And now he will be spending his time drumming and relaxing in Mexico, presumably in that order. So thank you so much to Darren for all his years of service. That's a remarkably specific retirement, drumming and relaxing in Mexico. Realizing your dreams is wonderful, yes. Upcoming meetings, November 5th, we have a budget workshop from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. On the 6th of November, we have the Hospital District Board meeting at 10 and the inaugural board meeting at 1:30. On November 19th, we have Policy and Governance Committee, followed by Thompson-Nicola Invasive Plant Management Committee. And on the 20th of November, Electoral Area Directors will be meeting, followed by a regular board meeting at 1:30. Today in your blue folders, you will find regular mail, a memo regarding UBCM CCBF third-party project requirements, and a recommendation regarding the Barrier and District Food Bank. In the event of an emergency, if the alarm sounds, please leave by the safest exit doors, either at the rear of the room or the main entrance. Go down the staircase, exit the building, and assemble in the staff car parking lot at the rear of the Paramount Theater. Please do not run, do not use the elevators. If you have issues with mobility, please advise the corporate officer. We have two additions to today's agenda. We have a verbal update from CAO Hildebrand regarding CCBF funding. You will find information about that in your blue folder. We also have a request from Director Jill Hayward, and you will find that information in your blue folder as well. Are there any other additions to or deletions from the agenda? Could I have a motion, please, to adopt the agenda as amended? Thank you. Director Smith, seconded by Director Grenier. All those in favor? Thank you. Director O'Toole, we do need to hear your. Thank you kindly. No one opposed. That is carried. We have the minutes of the regular board meeting held on October 2nd. Minutes. Vice Chair Smith, thank you very much. Seconded by Director Karpak. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That is carried. All right, we move on to delegations. Item 6.1, our first delegation presentation is from BC Assessment. We have Chris White and Graham Held. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. Just let me share my screen with you here. Can everybody see that?
No, not yet.
Not yet. We'll try again. Graham, can you see that? Okay, apologies
Yes.
for technical difficulties. So yes, good afternoon. My name is Christopher White, and I am the manager of specialized cost team with BC Assessment. Joining me today, I have Graham Held. He is the manager of local government relations for BC Assessment. Graham is also your local point of contact located in our Kamloops BC Assessment office. Today, I will be covering the gathering and transmission pipeline cost model review that is planned for implementation for the 2026 assessment role. Before we get started, BC Assessment respectfully acknowledges the Nipmuc, Secwepemc, St'át'imc, and Syilx nations on whose traditional territories we live and work throughout. BC Assessment is proud to be the assessment services provider for many of them. Each year, BC Assessment is required to complete a new assessment role as directed by the Assessment Act. Under the Assessment Act, most property is valued at market value. Some properties are not valued at market value because of legislation and policy provides for alternative approaches on the need to address technical issues with regard to the application of normal appraisal principles to certain specialized properties or due to government economic and social policy. Examples of properties assessed at other than market value based on board established regulated rates and legislative manuals are major industrial properties, electrical power generation properties, farmland, and linear properties. Pipelines fall into the category of linear properties. BC Assessment's board policy requires us to update these costs on an annual basis throughout consultation with industry and government. These updated costs are then applied via regulation. The pipeline industry approached BC Assessment to begin discussions for review in 2016 as they indicated that the pipeline rates being applied in the regulation were not representative of the current costs. The Railway and Pipeline Corporation's valuation regulation was established in 1986, based on costs and construction techniques for that era. Since that time, there have been limited changes to the valuation model. The only significant changes were the annual updates to the values via indices for major inputs. Depreciation for gathering and transmission lines was not increased during a 2011 review. However, costs were not considered at that time. The last time costs were reviewed with industry was in early 2000. And no changes were made at that time either. This is the first time since then that BC Assessment and industry have completed a detailed review of costs. The pipeline cost model review started in January of 2016. BC Assessment has maintained a proactive collaborative relationship with the pipeline industry. The industry working group consisted of Enbridge, TC Energy, Trans Mountain, Canadian Natural Resources, Encana, Pacific Northern Gas, Fortis BC, AltaGas, and Pembina. This working group represents approximately 90% of the valued pipelines in British Columbia. There are an additional 93 pipeline companies operating in BC at present. Government consultation has been ongoing with the Ministry of Finance, and BC Assessment's Audit and Risk Management Committee and the Board of Directors have been updated annually on the ongoing review. Implementation of this model was paused for the 2020 roll year as a result of COVID, and subsequently the 2024 roll year due to the election. Because of the age of the current cost model for pipeline improvements, this was not just a model review, but also the construction of a new model from the ground up. A number of options for the new model were considered, including reviewing the income approach that is used in most income producing property appraisals and used in many taxing jurisdictions in the United States. Ultimately, this approach was set aside due to the difficulty of obtaining income and capitalization information for all pipelines. Interestingly, the test case used indicated a much lower value than the initial values indicated by the cost approach. Cost to build, as well as cost estimates for hypothetical large projects, were provided by industry. These costs are compared to the current costing for pipelines provided by the International Costing Service, Marshall & Swift. Costs provided by industry were well within the range of costs for Marshall & Swift. The costing service, Marshall & Swift, was ultimately chosen as it provides predictability and transparency. So what's being reflected in this new costing model? As mentioned, pipeline rates are now valued using the Marshall & Swift costing service. This showed a correction to the cost being used with the reduction in the transmission pipeline costs and an increase to the gathering pipeline costs. Physical depreciation is reflected as fixed and immediate depreciation for pipelines. 94% of pipeline mains that are in place in BC are 60 years or older, with some pipelines in BC reaching 74 years and 68 years. As such, depreciation was increased. Functional utility is being reviewed to reflect the pipeline business practices followed in the other jurisdictions, reflecting the duplication of pipelines being placed in the same trench. The transition to the use of composite materials instead of stainless steel pipes for water lines is also being reflected in this new model. BC Assessment received and compiled the data required to complete this cost model review by August of this year. As a result, in September, BC Assessment notified the TNRD of the proposed changes to the pipeline valuation for Class 2. The reflection of the updated cost model in the TNRD results in a reduction to the Class 2 pipeline value of approximately $300 million in assessed value, or a drop of 27%. These proposed changes and the results have been shared with the Ministry of Finance, and they are aware of what is moving forward. What are the next steps? So in November, the regulated rates and regulations are approved by the Legislative Council of the Attorney General's Office. Following that, by late November, they are approved by the Minister of Finance. Finally, in December, BC Assessment's Board of Directors give final approval. So in summary, this review was conducted to reflect current industry costs that were not previously reflected in the cost model. We're providing this early notification as we understand this will have an impact on the budgeting process for the district. Next year, to give the district a heads up, BC Assessment plans on reviewing the regulated rates for rail, telephone, cable, and potentially electrical transmission and distribution. Once available, BC Assessment will convey the results of these reviews as early as possible. So thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Any directors have any questions or comments? Director Houghton, Director Onslow, Director Houghton?
Yeah, thank you. I asked this question actually a couple of times. I'm not really familiar on where you're getting at with what you're presenting, but you're changing in the assessment value is I'm a little confused, and I'll use the Trans Mountain Pipeline situation, for instance. The Trans Mountain Pipeline leaves the city of Kamloops and goes up through the Rossmore Lake country and then down through a whole bunch of privately owned deeded ranch land all the way to Merritt and throughout. We're not talking crown land. So is it because there's a pipeline going through the ranching communities, private deeded land? What is changing in value? I mean, the land's the same as it was before. It's still running cattle on it from one end to the other than there's a strip in there that's got two pipes going down it. What are we trying to change the value of the pipe itself or the land that the pipeline goes through? I'm a little confused here.
Sure. This is a reflection of the actual pipe costs, so the pipeline itself.
So who's paying the difference in the cost? The landowner? Or, because you're not taxing a piece of pipe, you're taxing obviously some land. So is the ranching community paying the differential in the assessed value?
No, we're taxing the pipeline corporation, or we're not taxing them, we're valuing them.
Director Onslow?
Hello, and thank you for your presentation. I'm curious about just a couple of things, but if this review was started in 2016 and we're just receiving the notification now, right, when we're at the preliminary stages of budgeting for 2026, I'm curious why BC Assessment didn't bring forward the information either earlier is one question. And the other one is, why are we not able to have the review of rail and the changes coming to the taxation on this class with the other utility services kind of at the same time? Like I just don't understand how we go to our taxpayers and say there's a increase in taxes to cover the services that the pipeline is no longer going to be required to pay. But don't worry, in a year or two, CN or whoever else will maybe be paying more. If you could clarify that for me, please.
So to your first question, yeah, the discussions did start in 2016, but every year they make thousands of changes to pipelines across the province. And so we need to reflect all those changes before we even get to valuation. So we didn't, as I mentioned, we didn't have those inputs from the pipeline corporations and calculated out through until August. And so that happens every year. So we need to recalculate the values every year based on the changes they provide us. So that's why we came to you with the values right now. In regards to your second question, yes, in a perfect world, I'd love to roll it all at the same time, but we just don't have the resources at present to do that. Next year, as I said, we will attempt to get those other few linear properties updated. And then potentially, I said, for electrical power and generation.
Thank you. A question for me. I understand, of course, that, you are constantly reviewing all sorts of different types of properties. Is there any type of mechanism whereby impacted people such as regional districts and municipalities can be consulted or apprised of what is happening as it is going on rather than be hit with a fait accompli in mid-September? Your timeline is the board of directors are giving this final approval in December, and we have not been consulted or included in any of these discussions. So very short timeline now to try and change anyone's mind. Have you given any thought to having, municipal and local government stakeholders as part of the process so that we could perhaps give our input at a time when it could actually make a difference?
BC Assessment is always looking to interact with our local governments and our regional districts. So we can take that away for next year's implementation. We can bring you into the discussion earlier and show you what we're discussing with industry. Yeah.
Director Laird and then Director Grenier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The TNRD only has two classes for taxation. It's commercial and residential. So I'm not sure exactly the number of how much money or the percentage that you're going to change. But the information we have, it's just over $250,000 that won't be coming to the TNRD for tax purposes. It has a huge impact on residential property. Some of our areas only have 300 residents, and the cost is going to be so high for the residents in that particular area that it doesn't compute for us. I don't know. I haven't seen the firm numbers of what your assessment changes are, and we have information on the possible impact, but could you explain what the tax implications are going to be and the impact on residential property in our areas?
Unfortunately, I don't have that information. Once we are able to provide the reports to your finance department, and that'll be likely in the next couple of weeks, we will get those reports over to them. That'll allow you guys to do your impact analysis.
We don't get consulted or talked, have any input into the impact of what your assessment is going to do to our residential properties?
So BC Assessment is separate from taxation. So we will pass your concerns on to the Ministry of Finance for sure. And you are able to reach out to them directly with your concerns, but.
So I understand that by December, you'll have all the numbers and everything presented and approved. And that's really difficult for our forthcoming budget to have that kind of a impact in 1 year. And it's also so late in our budget year. We just we'll pretty well have our budget finalized, and then we get this new information, and it completely changes our whole budget.
Director Grenier and then Director Middleton.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I think you indicated that you did not follow the income approach in your valuation.
That's correct, yeah.
And you said that you didn't have the data. Two of the companies, and I don't know the full list, but you mentioned Enbridge and Pembina. Those are public companies. That information is readily available. Is it not in the public market?
No, so when we look at doing an income approach on a pipeline, we're capitalizing the value for each pipeline that it generates, right? So when I say they use it in the United States, they're federally required to report that income by pipeline to the federal government down there. We don't have that mechanism in Canada, unfortunately. So that's why we're not able to implement it.
So the data is available by the pipeline companies themselves, and you're getting information from the pipeline companies to come to your other assessed values.
We're using actually a Marshall and Swift, which is a national costing service, and that's why we didn't want to tie it to pipelines themselves.
So the income approach would be more favorable if you had the data, and it would indicate a higher valuation than what you have come to. I think those were your opening comments.
No, actually, the one test case we did run on a TC Energy pipeline reported a lower value.
Okay, and then when we get pipelines, brand new pipelines like the Trans Mountain pipeline or the updated pipelines such as the Enbridge Sunrise project, how does that impact in your valuation?
We will value the new pipelines when they're in the ground, but
So the new pipeline, the Trans Mountain pipeline, is brand new, and wouldn't that have a higher value than some of the older pipelines?
so as I mentioned in the presentation, they use a fixed and immediate depreciation. So they get valued and they get depreciated at the same rate, no matter their age.
But depreciation's a long way away from market value. These pipelines are in high demand, they're oligopolies. Depreciation's an accounting concept of a piece of steel pipe and it's got a certain lifetime. These pipes are all updated. Pipelines are regularly maintained. How does that factor into your evaluation since you're not using the income approach?
So we start with a base cost and then it gets depreciated.
Right, so you're using an outdated base cost, not a new base cost, a new pipeline cost, and then you're discounting it on the assumption that's a declining asset as opposed to something that's being maintained and upgraded and is there no recognition that income approach where the market values these companies based on a public marketplace, and that's a more relevant valuation.
No, we're not valuing the company on an income approach. We're valuing the product being pushed down the pipeline on the income approach.
Right. So you're valuing the product, you're valuing the profitability of these companies with their pipelines.
Of the product going through the pipeline.
Right. And Enbridge stock has increased by about 40% in the last year.
Okay.
Those are my questions.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, Director Grenier, Director Middleton, then Director Hall.
Mine was very similar to what Director Grenier was just asking about. So essentially, you're taking the depreciated value that the company is valuing the pipeline at. So it's getting devalued at a certain percentage or what's determined to be sort of an allowable depreciated value through their books for whatever purposes, but now including the assessed value. So the pipeline that was worth, $1 million is depreciated annually on a certain amount, and we're going to get down to where these things are worth pennies on the dollar or zero.
Okay.
So this is just part of this sort of slippery slope or slide we're going to see oncoming through all utilities as they continue to write down what would be, I'm going to call the real property value of their asset. They don't own the land, so we're just saying a piece of pipe that's worth X amount of dollars 1 year is worth less the next year and the next year after that. So is this the beginning of say them working themselves all the way down to no taxation?
So fixed and immediate depreciation is a depreciation that is static. It doesn't change year over year. It doesn't increase every year. And because that, the reason we use that is we understand that, yes, they build these pipelines out, and yes, they age over time, but they also update sections of the pipe as need be. So they're constantly keeping the pipeline at a functioning level. So there'll be sections of pipeline that might be 60 years old, and there'll be sections of pipeline that might be brand new tomorrow. So that's how fixed and immediate depreciation works.
I've got Director Hall
you.
and Director Laird.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions with regards to the rail assessment that you're proposing in the near future. When was the last time that you did a rail assessment? And what was the outcome? Was there an increase in value or a decrease in value in that particular assessment?
Honestly, I don't have that information in front of me. I know the rail regulation was established in 1986. When we did discuss rail review with the CNCP, BC Rail, it did look like it was going to show quite a large increase in value.
Any idea how long the assessment's going to take?
We hope to have, as I said, we hope to have it in place next year.
The results in place next year, or yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Director Laird.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very familiar with construction and residential and building, and I understand how they're assessed. And I don't think there is one residential building or industrial commercial building that has decreased in value. When I look in the subdivision that I live in, my assessment went from $600,000 to 1.2 million in 3 years. How can a pipeline say that we can't depreciate that? It's a fixed cost because of the way the assessments come in. Why is the pipeline not being assessed the same way as the value of the replacement? Because basically we look on replacement and we also look on the sales within the area where your house, where your residential building is. And if one house goes up $200,000 in 1 year, you look at all the other houses there and all of a sudden their land values have gone up considerably too. But I can't relate to the fact that a company as big as the pipeline companies are actually being able to depreciate and not pay the proper amount of taxes that they have been paying. They've basically, as far as I can understand, when they put their business plan together, they knew what the taxes were. And why are we looking at decreasing them after all? Well, I don't understand that. The value is obviously more now than there was even when they completed the pipeline. You couldn't build that pipeline again for the same amount of money they invested. So I don't understand the depreciation.
And alternate Director Beppel.
Just, I would like to have an answer. It's like I'm talking to a block wall. Nobody's answering. When you don't like the question, you just sit there and look at us. I would like an answer to that. Thank you.
Would someone from BCA like to answer Director Laird's question?
Sure. I mean, depreciation is applied on all improvements in linear improvements in this generally the same fashion with this fixed and immediate depreciation. So I'm happy to maybe supply an answer through the finance division that's a little bit more detailed that might help. Otherwise I'll just be repeating myself, I think.
Supplemental?
Yes, I'm sure you're aware of the financial position of most people now. They're struggling with daily expenses. And when you look at the impact that by depreciating a pipeline that is making money not only for the company, but for the country, and you're downloading onto our taxpayers, we're not too sure exactly how it is until you give us all the numbers, but it's a huge impact, especially for each area. Each area is different in our community. I don't even know if you looked at the impact that you're going to have on the different EA directors' areas, they're huge. It's a big impact, and I can't understand why you wouldn't take that into consideration.
Are you looking for an answer or? Okay, Alternate Director Beppel.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to follow up on what Director Grenier said. And the Pembina, just for an example, in 2017 had a profit of $1.1 billion. In 2020, it was 1.5 billion. In 2024, it was 2.4 billion in terms of profits. And I appreciate that wouldn't all be in BC, but I would assume that the proportion relative to the size of their pipelines here, it was going up. It's more than doubled from 2017 to 2024. So my question is, because pipelines are all over Canada, first, why isn't the assessment based on the value of the profit that could be generated? Because if the pipeline was sold, that would be what it would be based on, would be the profits that it was generating. And two, what are the assessment authorities in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the rest of Canada, how are they assessing the values of their pipelines? So that we know that what BC is doing is a reasonable methodology.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, the challenge with using the income approach is just getting hands-on on the data. In regards to what other provinces and jurisdictions doing across Canada, I believe they're all using a cost approach similar to us. The other challenge with using an income approach is it opens it up to appeal by pipeline companies year over year, whereas being regulated rate using a cost approach, it limits the ability for the company to appeal. So it would be a trade-off in uncertainties.
Director Grenier?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the answer. You talked about appeals. There's an appeal process for residential homeowners and for people who feel that there's an inappropriate valuation. Is there an appeal process that a third party could raise under the linear assessment and this current situation?
So you could appeal the application of the regulated rate if the regulated rate is being applied incorrectly. Otherwise, there is no avenue of appeal to a regulated rate.
From what I can see of the situation, there is frustration that there has been a lack of consultation and a lack of even just information sharing regarding this proposed change, which is coming as we are preparing our budgets for 2026. There seems little doubt the changes to the valuation of the gathering and transmission pipelines are going to impact ordinary people. They are going to impact ordinary residents and property owners of not only the TNRD, but some of our member municipalities and municipalities and regional districts all over the province. I would suggest that this is not a good look for pipelines to be reducing what they pay in their property valuation and having that have to go onto the backs of ordinary people, many of whom have seen their lives considerably disrupted by the pipelines going through their communities and their areas. I'm thinking of the tiny home warriors, which Director Onslow is still facing up in her area near Blue River. So I'm wondering, is there any chance for some consultation? I was going to say more consultation, but that would be wrong. Some consultation on this before December when it looks as if this is getting ready to get rubber stamped. Any chance of consulting with some regional districts and municipalities around the province to get a little bit of belated input?
So Right now, we aren't looking to consult anymore, but we are open to sharing any feedback that the regional district, this regional district, or any others, any local governments, any First Nations want to have us either forward to the first or to the Minister of Finance, or set you up with a direct contact with them.
Okay, I think we'd like to follow up with Director Newstater, but before Director Newstater, I think, yes, we would like to follow up with some contact information, please, as to how we can have a discussion about this before it gets signed off on in December. Director Newstater.
Thank you, Chair. I just heard you say you're happy to take any feedback forward. Can you clarify what you've heard in this room and what you will be taking back, and how you would prefer us to offer even more clarity about how we feel as a board about this?
Sure. So, I mean, I anticipated there would be frustration with the outcomes of this. I wish I was delivering a different message, of course, and that it'll have different impacts on your various electoral areas throughout the district. I will be providing the district with those reports as soon as I can, and then I will forward the contact through to Jamie Vieira for the Minister of Finance for you.
So just supplemental, I would add, I hope that you are bringing back clear messaging that we are not satisfied with the process or with the result that we're hearing, and there has to be further consultation and conversation about this. We can't bring this to our residents as is. So I hope that feedback would be very clear that this is a dissatisfied board.
Yes.
And also that we would like very much for this to be held back and discussed in consideration with other discussions about other similar entities. It seems that this has been rushed through rather quickly for no apparent reason. If it's been discussed since 2016, we're 9 years on from that. So why is there suddenly an almighty rush to get it passed for next year? Surely, given the dissatisfaction that you're hearing, and I'm sure it's not just from us, then perhaps it might be worth to put this on the back burner and consider these things more rationally and in conjunction with each other, so that perhaps we can come to an arrangement, or we can make it so that our residents are not impacted to the extent that this will impact them. Director Laird, you're going to have the last word.
You said the last words for me. I don't understand the rush. I don't understand not consulting with the people that you're impacting. It's disgusting that you ignore the people that live in BC, and you're just telling us. It's like talking to a block wall right now. You're not concerned. You have no emotion. You're not showing any emotion. It's just our way, or we're not. You can't do anything about it. And that's what you just told us. There's maybe opportunity for consultation, but the body language and what I see in your pictures, it's not donating. It's not coming across to me that you have any concern about what you've just heard. Thank you.
So thank you for your presentation, gentlemen, and we certainly will be in touch very soon after this meeting to see about any next steps that we can take, and any consultation opportunities, and any opportunities for feedback. And I just will say, when you said any more consultation, I will just correct you. Take out the word more, because there has not been any consultation up until this point. All right, thank you very much.
Have a good afternoon.
We move on to what I am sure will be a much more pleasant discussion. We have some fine folk here from Blue Earth Renewables. Do we have anyone here from Inclecampton Tribal Council? No. That's fine. We have Jared Sproul. You're not Sproul? We have Tyler Kuchina, and we have Tara Jones, who is here for support. They are from Blue Earth Renewables, and they are here to talk about some projects in our area. So over to you, gentlemen and lady.
Yeah, so can you hear us on the microphone? Okay. Just closer? Okay. Okay, I can bring it up. Yeah, so thanks everyone for the time today. So we are from Blue Earth Renewables. So if you scroll down on the screen, a little bit about Blue Earth. We're an independent power producer that operates in North America. So head office in Calgary, offices in North Vancouver, Guelph, and also Phoenix and San Diego. So Blue Earth specializes in all types of renewables, wind, solar, hydro, and also energy storage. Blue Earth originally came out of BC, so a lot of run-of-river hydro, 130 megawatts there. And we're an operator that prefers to be a long-term owner and operator, so we want to operate these assets through the entire life of the project. To date, Blue Earth has only sold one asset that it's developed. That was our Bow Lake wind farm that we sold to our First Nations partner. Inklikama Nation Tribal Council. So Blue Earth is in partnership with NNTC on a lot of projects. One of those projects, the Kwayam Solar Facility that just went into service this July. So that facility is on the Highland Valley Copper Tailings Mine. That was a 15 megawatt solar project. And then as we go through today, there'll be other projects that we're looking to develop with NNTC and other interested communities. So as I mentioned, Blue Earth is a long-term owner and operator. Our operations philosophy is that we're in the communities long-term. We want to build the relationships with the communities and make sure that these projects are making a material difference where we operate. So we have a remote operating facility in Calgary that is 24/7, 365 days a year to operate the facility, and then operators on site to respond to any issues on the sites.
Yeah, so one of the projects that we wanted to introduce today that we're just in the very early stages of development of is the Cache Wind Project. It's located within the regional district here, kind of a mix of areas E, I, and J. So I think the directors of each and a few of the nearby towns would have got a little bit of information that we sent out earlier on that. So thanks for letting us come in and explain a little bit about this early stage project. It's proposed to be up to 300 megawatts, and that would be up to 51 turbines to reach that number. It would include also a project substation and interconnect into existing BC Hydro lines. And we're kind of looking at two different potential points of interconnection. So we've done a little bit of engineering studies and arrived at, we think 300 megawatts would be kind of the maximum capacity that could be without triggering too many upgrades on the transmission system. So kind of the right fit. We're just in the early stages. The investigative license, we're actually have an agreement to purchase off an early stage developer named Enterprise. So once that's issued, we'll go ahead and install MET measuring equipment, temporary kind of measurement equipment. But we wanted to get a jump start on engaging with the communities and the First Nations and everybody in the area because there are some opportunities coming up with BC Hydro, and we may be in a position to submit this into their current 2025 call for power. And so we've been out, we actually are out this week. On Tuesday, we had a public open house in Cache Creek. We had about 20 participants or residents show up to that one. Last night we were in Clinton, we had 10. And then today we're going to Logan Lake and doing another one for the solar projects. But yeah, we're really excited about this project. Like I said, it's just in the very early kind of conceptual stages. We haven't done any on the ground surveys or anything like that. Those environmental assessments and things like that, that will take place starting next year along with the wind resource measurement. But just wanted to introduce you guys to the project because we're out engaging in the communities. You'll undoubtedly probably hear from some constituents. So we just want to let you know that we're available for any questions that come up, should you have questions. And we're always open to discuss the project. And this is the first of what we plan to have as many updates as we kind of move this through development.
Yeah, so as Jared mentioned, we're also developing a solar project near Logan Lake. So we presented last year to the TNRD board in August in merit on this project. So the Ma'a at Tamihu solar project, which is Inklikama for coming into daylight. So we submitted this project to BC Hydro in the 2024 call for power, and we were successful with an electricity purchase agreement. So that's an electricity purchase agreement that if the project was constructed, it would last over the 30-year life of the project. That contract within itself is not approval of the project. The project will still go through the environmental assessment process and lots of regulatory and engagement phases. So just one step of many to the development of the project. So the solar project itself is a 104 megawatt solar project, just 5 kilometers north of the district of Logan Lake. Consists of all the typical infrastructure that would be associated with the solar project. So solar panels, they're tracking panels, so they'll track the azimuth of the sun. There's a substation that converts the voltage from the low voltage 34.5 kilovolt line to BC Hydro's kilovoltage of 138 kV. There'll be a 1.5 kilometer substation associated with the project and other facility infrastructure. So we have some preliminary numbers there that we approximate about 200 jobs during construction, and then several full-time employment during its operations. So on the next slide, you'll see a slide that looks very similar. So it's a lot of the same information. We're looking at the potential of developing a phase 2 for this project. So it'd be a similar size project, another 104 megawatts that would be located adjacent to that same project. So as Jared mentioned, we'll be out in Logan Lake tonight to talk to the residents and provide more information on that project.
Yeah, so in terms of community benefits and kind of what to expect locally from these types of renewable projects, there's the local employment piece. So, obviously a lot more jobs during the construction phases of the project, but there are good, steady long-term jobs, as Tyler mentioned, that are local to the project. So, for the solar project, depending on what size that ends up being, that would be, several full-time employees. For the 300 megawatt wind project, that would probably be a supervisor and probably up to about 8 full-time wind turbine technicians for a project that size. So that's kind of an idea of what the local employment piece would be. The projects will contribute, long-term tax revenue to the regional district. And, those numbers we're working on some estimates for the wind project because we need to factor that into our proposals and such into BC Hydro and the costs that we can sell power for. And I think, we've got kind of some high level ideas on the phase 1 solar that got awarded. So that one, like ballpark, probably should be around about 800,000 a year for the solar based on the assessment manuals and those type of things. Blue Earth's big on kind of community benefit funds and things like that. So we're always keen to set up a community benefit fund and look at where we can kind of contribute locally in the communities with some donations and different things like that. We also have some kind of broad-based corporate things that we encourage people to apply for locally in the area, and that we do scholarship programs and training programs and things like that for people that are interested in potentially what might be kind of local opportunities here in the future should some of these move forward. And then there's just the local economic benefits, the spin-off and that from the construction projects for hotels and other kind of service industries and things like that in the area. Yeah, so in terms of we've got kind of 2 different schedule slides here, and one kind of applies to the wind project, that this first one. So as we mentioned, it does not have an electricity purchase agreement yet. We're planning to hopefully submit that into this 2025 call for power. The bids are due in early January. We'd expect BC Hydro to announce the successful candidates towards the end of March. And if successful, that timeline for these projects is that they would need to be on, as per the EPA, online producing by towards the end of 2033. So if you look at the permitting process and everything that the project would need to go through, there'd still be years of permitting and engagement and all the studies and planning. And we'd be looking at a start of construction kind of in the late 2030, 2031 kind of time frame. Construction for a project that size would probably take 2 to 3 seasons of construction, years being like summer seasons.
Yeah, and Jared covered most of it, but solar, very similar development timeline, just construction is a bit shorter. So you see about 14 months for a 104 megawatt solar project. So for the phase 1 project, that would be September of 2030. And then the phase 2 project would tail that by about a year. So September 2031.
And then lastly, we've included some miniature maps here for everybody. But hopefully these are just general area maps for the project to give you a sense. The top one is the cache wind area. And you can kind of see that what looks like a bit of a spider webby type of thing. That's the investigative license. We've drawn their yellow polygon around that area to kind of expand our engagement area and where we're kind of speaking to people. And I'll just kind of put it out there that this is a fairly expansive area, but the actual footprint of the project will be a subset of here and be quite small in comparison to that area. And we have it a little bit more detail at the open houses with where we're kind of initially thinking for placement of the turbines, and they're more into kind of the central area of that, what that yellow polygon and stuff is. But like we said, we don't have a final layout or anything yet. We'll be measuring the wind, doing all the environmental studies, and that preliminary layout will undoubtedly kind of change. And then where the polygon kind of comes down, you can see there's kind of 2 dots, one to the west and one to the south. Those are kind of the areas where we would expect to potentially interconnect to the existing BC Hydro project. And we would need to build a transmission line from our project substation to that existing BC Hydro line to connect to their system.
And finally, the last map there is the solar project. So apologies, it's probably very hard to see, but there's a blue line there that is our investigative use license. And then you'll see kind of a yellow polygon and a gray polygon. So the yellow polygon is the area that we were looking at last year for the phase 1 project. And the gray would be an expanded study area to accommodate the phase 2 project. Again, this is a much larger area than we'd need for the actual solar project. So this is just where we'll complete our baseline studies, environmental studies, our cultural work and everything to really zone in on what is the best area to build the project.
Yep, that's all we had today. Any questions?
All right, well, thank you very much. I've already got a couple of people on my list. It looks like I'm adding a couple more. So we've got Director Sarai, we've got Vice Chair Smith, we've got Director Sow and Director Houghton.
Thank
And
you, Madam
Director
Chair.
Grenier. Director Sarai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Exciting times. I'm very new to our area. My 2 questions are the parts that we use for solar panels, are they obtained, all the material in Canada? And recycling, when they do expire, what happens and who takes care of that?
Yeah, no, that's great questions. So for the panels themselves, they're not made in Canada. Like a lot of the materials that go into the panels, they're kind of rare earth minerals that need to be sourced from elsewhere. So we look at supply chains all over the world. So whether that's in Asia, there's plants in South Africa, Europe, or even the United States. But right now, there's no manufacturing facilities in Canada for those parts, no. But in terms of Canadian content, we look to source Canadian content wherever possible. So whether that's the racking or the foundation itself, the steel, that becomes a big component of the project capital costs. So your question about decommissioning, so kind of what happens at end of life for the panels? Are they recycled? So there's a lot of efforts going right now to develop commercial scale recycling for these facilities. So with more and more solar facilities coming online, there's a need to have these recycling facilities in place. So they're still being developed, and you can recycle parts of the panels. But for the full scale recycle, that's still underway of what that looks like.
Just supplemental, Madam Chair. I think I can speak for all the area directors here and the directors here from the city of Kamloops. If there's any opportunity that a manufacturing plant, you needed a location, you couldn't pick a perfect area than where we are right now.
Yeah, and what I will say is in the BC Hydro Copper Power, they awarded 10 projects and there's only 1 solar project awarded. So there is a bit of a ramp up period for BC to adopt solar. Yeah.
All right, Vice Chair Smith, then Directors Sow, Houghton, Grenier, and Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Robin Smith, Mayor for the District of Logan Lake, so we've met before. I had the opportunity on Thursday of last week to tour your project at the Highland Valley site. Incredibly impressive when you actually see it. It's one thing to see it on a map or even in photos, but actually to see it on the ground is a whole different perspective. And my question is, footprint wise, what does this project look like in comparison to the Highland Valley site? Because my understanding is this one's quite a bit bigger, so to be a bigger impact. That's one question.
Yes. Yeah, so the project itself would be about 6 times bigger than Quayam. So quite a bit bigger. So typically a footprint for this project that we look at for about that 100 megawatts is about 450 to 500 acres of land. So it is quite a big impact, yes.
Thank you. It's going to be interesting. And the other thing I want to mention, and I've mentioned it a few times, obviously with the Highland Valley expansion and the increased activity, there's a lot happening in our area. There's really no effort on the part of, well, actually anybody, to initiate anything in terms of housing. We also have an Enbridge Sunrise project that's going to be happening in that same area. It's going to have additional pressure. And then when you also include your project, the impacts are going to be huge and many. So I definitely will see you a little bit later this evening, and we can have a little bit further in-depth conversation about what some of those impacts are going to look like and what opportunities might be there. But I do just want to mention that because I'm not sure if all of the players realize the impacts they're going to have on such a, I mean, it's a big region, but it's a small area, and it's going to be incredibly impacted. So thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that feedback. And as we look to construction, accommodation is a big piece of that and what the load it puts on the local residential areas. So would appreciate having that conversation. And it's not just Enbridge, like there's all the wind projects from the last call for power and a lot of things that are going to be happening around 2030. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I was going to mention the 2 capstone projects at Mount Mabel and Highland Valley. That's 2 more. So, perhaps there's an opportunity for Blue Earth and Capstan and NNTC and Highland Valley Tech to maybe get together and figure out where all these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of employees are going to end up going, because it's a nice place to camp up there in the summertime, but I wouldn't want to try doing it in February. All right, next up is Director Sao.
Thank you, Chair. And actually, Director Sarai already asked the question. Thank you.
Director Houghton.
I'll make this short and quick. My name's Doug Houghton. I'm an area director from south of town and been involved in the ranching industry all my life. And obviously, these projects are going to be taking place on probably mostly crown land that probably has other tenure holders on it today, whether it be a range tenure holder of cattle or a fishing or hunting or recreation or all the other be. What's the consultation process to date, and how are you going to address their concerns and their needs and their requirements to fulfill their livelihood? Because I've heard that on the wind power project that was going to be put through the Monty Lake, Westwold, Falkland area, there was little or no consultation. And what has been done to date in your project, and how are you going to handle this? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So yeah, we're starting engagement right away. We've actually pulled a full list. We use the online tools to pull like all the interest holders that have a interest in the area already. We mailed out all of our details to them, newsletters, offers to meet and discuss the project and understand how they use the area, so we can kind of take that into our planning considerations. So yeah, we look forward, we plan to engage with everybody, and we've already kicked that off and mailed them out. Unfortunately, with the Canada Post stuff, I think the mail's just landing kind of last week and this week. But yeah, we look forward to all those discussions.
A quick supplement, I highly recommend you work with Kevin Boone, who's General Manager of the BC Cattlemen's Association, that oversees all the local associations, especially the ones in your area that you're dealing with. Kevin's office is out east of town, and he would be a good one to go for coffee with one afternoon. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Director Grenier.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I'm the director for the area, I think, that is in this area. Yeah, confirmed by Director Smith. This area, I believe, is part of the Indian Gardens, Haywood Farmer range area. And I'm just wondering, number one, have you had direct contact with those particular tenure holders? And have they given you any preliminary feedback?
Yeah, so we have had contact with them. So they came out to our open house last year in August. So they expressed concerns with a solar project because solar project does have a bit more disturbance than wind in terms of the fencing around the project. So we're actively working with them to talk about how a project like this would impact their grazing.
So I just want to clarify, you talked to them a year ago. You've just sent out these notices about the Logan Lake meeting tonight. Are they going to be, do you know whether they're going to be attending this Logan Lake meeting tonight and the updated information that you've generated over the last year?
Yeah, so I don't know if they're attending the meeting tonight, but we have reached out other times to get in touch with them. And
At other times, but,
yeah.
okay. I guess the second part of my question, I did see a video of the Highland Valley project, and it was very expansive and quite impressive, but it was in, I think, a different location, different context. A lot of this solar seemed to be close to the ground. And I'm just wondering, the first thing I was thinking was, boy, that cow is really going to get a good scratching when he comes up against that solar panel. Now, I don't think that's happening at Highland Valley, but it sure is going to happen up this way. So how do you handle that kind of situation with your installations?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So yeah, very different than the tailings pond at Highland Valley. So this area was kind of chosen due to the wildfires that happened in the area, so it being previously disturbed. But for your question about the cattle and rubbing up against the solar panels, like this facility would be fenced around, so the cattle wouldn't be actually able to get in.
So 400, I think you said 450 to 500 acres of fenced off area that's no longer used for grazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot to talk about, I guess.
There is.
Director Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. And you met with me via Zoom back in September on the wind project. So thank you for that. I do have a question about the solar project. Will you be setting up batteries to store the hydro?
Yeah, so not at this time. There'll be no battery energy storage system.
So it won't have a battery storage system. It'll go directly into, for lack of a better way, right into the grid.
Into the grid. Yeah.
Okay, because and you're not planning to use batteries?
We're not planning to right now. There's no incentive. Like it doesn't make sense to spend the money to add batteries to the site. So
okay, thank you. Because I had questions about the environmental impacts and things. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Director Onslow.
Hi there, thank you. Earlier on my term with the TNRD, we had a presentation about the BC grasslands and conservation of the grasslands, and that we have 1% of our grasslands remaining in the province, and that it's critical habitat. So I'm curious if the solar project is in the grasslands, and how do they recover after your operation?
Let a guest speaker up.
Hi, sorry about that. Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. I'm just curious if this solar project is taking place in the BC grasslands. We had a presentation earlier on in our term saying that there's only 1% of BC grasslands that's left, yet it's critical habitat for 35 different endangered species. And so I'm curious, when a solar project takes place, is this in that 1% of our grasslands that's remaining? And what does the recovery of that grassland look like after? And is it completely destroyed for the 30 years of a solar operation, or does the grass grow underneath? I just don't understand the impact of that. And maybe it's not even in that grassland. I'm just curious if it is.
Yeah, I don't believe it is. I can double check and get back to you on that first part, whether it is in that 1%. In terms of after the life of when it's decommissioned, it is restored back to how it originally, the habitat originally was. So this was more for the Mihatimiwu project. It is more of a forested environment. So it would be restored to how it was when, before it was disturbed. So that's part of the regulation that we have to follow.
Director Middleton, and then we're going to conclude with alternate Director Beppel.
Thank you. And don't know a ton about solar and wind power, but just a quick question. You have multiple projects that you're presenting or you have on the go in the region. Some appear to be a wind project and others are solar projects. Now, solar takes up a much bigger footprint than what wind would, I'm presuming. Is there a real difference as to why you propose wind in one area, solar in another? And with the landmass that solar takes, is there a reason why you wouldn't just be directing yourself more towards wind projects, since we seem to get a lot of wind in this area, and not be utilizing the land base that solar requires?
Sure. Yeah, we are looking at the two different options, and really it's driven by the resource availability and what we think will be competitive and appealing to BC Hydro. So for any project to go ahead, it's got to be selected by BC Hydro, and a big part of that is kind of its competitiveness and the cost it can offer in at. So like Tyler said the 2024 call, there was 9 wind projects and the 1 solar project that got awarded. And so that gives you a little bit of an idea of like the mix and what was the most competitive in that bid. I'd say, in terms of this area, the wind resource up here, there is available transmission capacity on the line, which is another key criteria for finding a location that you can connect into and sell to BC Hydro. And this area right in here actually doesn't have that high a wind resource, but it does have a good solar resource. But yeah, areas where there is a high wind resource, they lend themselves better to the wind projects, but there are areas that the solar resource is probably a better use in terms of productivity and hooking something onto the line at that location.
Thank you.
Alternate Director Beppel.
Thank you. Within the context of the TNRD or local governments looking to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, is there an opportunity for local governments, whether it's the EAs or the local municipalities, to use some of the reductions in greenhouse gas emissions that you are producing by using renewable energy? Is there an opportunity for those savings to go to the local governments?
Not that I'm aware of. This really, what BC Hydro purchases in the electricity purchase agreements is the electricity that's generated, and they also have wording in there that they are also acquire those kind of green or environmental attributes, they call them. That is kind of bundled with it. So it's not like a product that we can separate off and kind of grant separately to somebody else or sell to somebody else or anything. So what they're buying is the electricity along with that environmental attribute that's kind of created with each megawatt hour generated with clean electricity.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. And hopefully we'll be hearing more from you as these projects advance.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
All right. All right, we move on to item number 6.3, building infraction 1448 Boston Bar Trail in electoral area N. Are the owners here to make representation to the board regarding this item? No. Right, we move on to 6.4, building infraction 3421 Birch Island Lost Creek Road in electoral area A. Are the owners here to make representation to the board on this item? Not online. And not here in the room. All right, we move on to item 7.1, building infraction 1448 Boston Bar Trail. In electoral area N, we do have a staff recommendation. Director Thorpe moves that recommendation. Thank you. Seconded by Director Stanky. Any discussion on this? Director O'Toole, I have not forgotten that you are online. I hope. All right, no questions or comments on the recommendation. Then all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Director O'Toole? Is he gone to get a coffee, or do we know if he's still there?
It appears Director O'Toole is no longer.
No longer with
in the
us.
meeting.
All right.
No.
All right, then that motion passes. Item number 7.2, 3421, building infraction 3421 Birch Island Lost Creek Road in electoral area A. All right, we have Directors Blackwell and Sal.
I would like to recuse myself from this for potential conflict interest with the owner.
Okay, thank you. Director Sal.
I would also like to recuse myself based on the relationship as a fellow board member of the Tourism Wells Gray.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So we do have a recommendation. Director Thorpe moves that recommendation, seconded by Director Sarai. Any discussion? You've all had the opportunity to look at the items that were attached, and Director Onslow.
Thank you for that. I just would like to address that there was a lot of items attached and a lot of information to read through and to try to understand. But I just been looking to the TNRD to offer confirmation that we have consistently offered a path forward for this business to not have them shut down.
Mr. Kraus?
Through the chair, yes, we certainly have. We've been in talks with the owners the two owners since end of May 2024. So it's been over a year where we've provided options. And unfortunately, they haven't come forward to take out building permits. I'd just like to clarify as well that the recommendation is for a notice on title for construction contrary to the building bylaw. So it's not a discussion about agriculture or agritourism. There's certainly the North Thompson OCP, for example, supports agritourism. There's a process for people to go through a zoning amendment, for example. But the contravention here is construction without permit, and that's the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? No questions or comments? All right, then I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Is anyone opposed? Thank you. That is carried. I'll just wait for Directors Blackwell and Sal to return. We'll all just watch Director Blackwell there. All right, we move on to number 8.1, Board Code of Conduct Bylaw number 2893. We have 3 separate recommendations here. Director Rantis, seconded by Director Bass. Thank you. Any discussion on recommendation 1? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Number 2? Move two, Director Smith, seconded by Vice Chair Smith. Discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. And number three, that was whom? Director Newstater, thank you, seconded by Director Thorpe. Discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. 8.2, we have Board of Directors Remuneration Bylaw, another three recommendations.
Move one.
Director Blackwell, thank you, seconded by Director Stanky. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Move two, Director Sarai, seconded by Director Bass. Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. And number three. Move three, Director Hall. Thank you. Seconded by Director Morris. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Development applications, number 9.1. We have an unsightly premises bylaw number 2307 in electoral area O. We do have a recommendation. Director Hayward, seconded by Director Middleton. Any discussion on this? No? All those in favor? Is anyone opposed? That's carried. 9.2, referral response number REF 784 regarding a telecommunication tower in Coldwater. We have a recommendation. Director Stanky, thank you. Seconded by Director Kerslake. Any discussion? Hopefully they put the correct address on the application. Little, see who was paying attention 3 meetings ago. All right, anyone? Questions or comments on the question? And all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. 9.3, temporary use permit application on Hamilton Hill in electoral area N. Director Houghton, thank you. Director Graham.
Microphone, please. Sorry.
You just turn your microphone on because then people at home can't hear you.
Thank you, Madam. I'd like to excuse myself from voting on this one. I have a family member in that ownership.
Thank you. All right, 9.3, temporary use permit. And we had Director Houghton made that motion, seconded by Director Thorpe. Any discussion on this? Director Thorpe.
It's just, I remember this one from back early in the term. It's over near Corbin Lake, I believe. So my question on this one would be, it has to do with the riparian area. I know that there is a stream in that area, and I'm wondering if there's been any consideration of that stream and protecting the riparian area, particularly from the dust that would be going into the area, into the water stream.
Through the chair, so under their existing mines permit, they're required to protect that riparian area. So a lot of that is covered under that. And then as part of this setup, they'd also have to be outside the provincial riparian areas regulation setback, which is something administered through our office. So it should be covered.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Move on to 10.1.1, grant application to the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program for the Thompson-Nicola Film Commission. We have a recommendation. Moved by Director Bass, seconded by Vice Chair Smith. Any discussion on this? Director Blackwell?
Yeah, just a quick question. Sorry, and of course now I've got something in my throat. Do we have any other grant applications in under Reddit currently, or this
Through the chair, no, we do not. We did have one, but it was pulled back and we put this one forward instead.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. 10.1.2 Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, Volunteer and Composite Fire Department Equipment and Training Grant. Director Sarai, thank you. Seconded by Vice Chair Smith. Any discussion on this? Any questions, comments? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. 10.1.3 Strategic Priorities Fund Grant Application. This has already been approved by the board, just adding a little bit of verbiage to it. Director Houghton making that motion, thank you. Seconded by Director Newstader. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 10.1.4 for information, we have building permit activity for September 2025. Anyone have any questions on that? 11.1, we have committees. We do have a recommendation coming out of Committee of the Whole, and that is that the board approve the board expense policy 1.1.16 as amended. Who'd like to make that? Director Blackwell, seconded by Director Sarai. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Move on to correspondence, 12.1.1 Comox Valley Regional District. I would like to move that the board approve the attached letter and forward it to the Minister of State for Local Government and Rural Communities. Seconded by Vice Chair Smith. Thank you. Any discussion on this? Seeing no hands in the air, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. And 12.1.2 BC assessment. So I'd see, there isn't really a you can certainly make a recommendation.
Sorry, I got ahead of myself. That we send a letter to the Honorable Brenda Bailey, Minister of Finance, postponing the upcoming changes to the BC assessment transmission pipeline valuation, and maybe politely express our disappointment and the lack of consultation.
Thank you. So Director Thorpe, who'd like a second that by Director Onslow. Thank you very much. Discussion. Director Grenier.
We had heard from the presentation that there was no appeal of their, there was a limitation on their appeal. And I think that perhaps one of the things that we should be looking at is the possibility of an appeal. If staff could take a look at what the options are and report back, because I think that an appeal might buy some time for other considerations as well.
Madam Corporate Officer, does that need to be a motion or?
I believe we can go ahead and reach out to BC Assessment to inquire about it. I don't think it needs to be added to the resolution as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We have some items of correspondence for information. Anyone have anything here they would like to discuss? Nothing there. All right, we move on to new business. I'm going to go first to CAO Hildebrand for a verbal update.
Thank you, Chair Roden. Just have a brief update that we put in each of your blue folders, and it was just a discussion that came up with UBCM recently about some language changes regarding third-party support using CCBF funds, and that information and those highlights are listed for you. And I just wanted to mention that and see if there was any questions at all that you may have.
Does anyone have any questions regarding the CCBF guidelines and information that was in the blue folders? If you haven't quite had time to digest it, then I'm sure that CAO Hildebrand would be happy to speak with you about it at some future date. Happy might not be quite the right word. He will be willing to speak with you about it at some future date. All right, no questions at the moment. Then our second item of new business, Director Hayward has a request.
Yes, I do have a request. Hopefully you looked at it in your packets. It is in regards to the Barrier and District Food Bank. And my recommendation is that the board approve an exemption to the electoral area grant and aid policy to increase the Barrier and District Food Bank maximum allowable grant to $7,000 to help fund their local protein program. And I'd like to point out that they've already received a portion of this 7,000, so all we're really asking for is an additional $2,000. And their protein program is to provide 300 pounds of protein, which is meat, to the people that they are servicing each month. It's huge.
So they've already received the maximum of $5,000, so Director Hayward wants it increased by another 2,000. Director Blackwell?
I have to recuse myself from this one as well, as my wife runs the Yellowhead Community Services food program, which is attached to.
All right, thank you. So Director Hayward, you're making your motion, the motion that we
Yes, I'd
like to make that
the
motion? Who'd like to second it? Director Onslow is going to second that. Any discussion on this? No? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Thank you. We move on to item 14. I do not believe we have any notices of motion, but I'm willing to stand corrected. No notices of motion. We move on to item 15, which is question period. Are there any members of the public who have questions? Either here in the gallery or online. Excuse me, or online. Anyone online? I'm afraid you're too late. Yes, you can go back.
Oh, I didn't know because you didn't ask for any other new business, but this kind of came out of our EA meeting this morning. It's probably something that I brought up, and being that Jill Hayward and I and others are on the Noxious Weed Committee, and I consider this kind of like the good neighbor policy that I've talked about earlier. Is the city of Kamloops, and I'll address it to the representatives here today. The city accounts and the regional district boundaries intertwine with each other, and we overlap. And we have rural parts to the city of Kamloops riding, if you want to use that term. And I'd like to ask the TNRD staff to maybe work with the City of Kamloops staff and the directors that are here today, if there's a possibility of them re-entering our cost-sharing program with our noxious weed program, so that, now let's use the example on Rose Hill Road where I live. A couple of the major ranches have land on both sides of the road. One side of the road city, one side of the road is regional district. You can cost share on our noxious weed program here, but you can't here. I'm just trying to fill in the gaps and make it so that folks, and I'll use the term, the Hefty Creeks, the Barnard Vales, the Knutsfords of the world, have an opportunity within the city limits to have access to our cost sharing program through Purity Feed. So I was just hoping that maybe I can get some support there. Thank you.
Corporate Officer Jeremiah.
Thank you, Chair. I believe that this, as there will be a significant amount of staff time that would be required to accomplish this request, I feel we should have this come forward at the next meeting as a notice of motion. I can help you craft something if you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I do apologize. Does anyone else have any new business they want to bring forward? Director Thorpe.
I'll keep it brief. Earlier this week, I sent everybody a quick email about the Fraser Basin Council Youth Advisory Committee recruitment. Just want to remind everybody, it's in your emails. It does have a timeline of October 31st. So if you know some youth, please share it. Also on there is some information about the Chief Roy Muscle Bursary. And I think that might be of interest to some of the youth in our area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business? All right, we go back again to question period. Is there anyone in the gallery or online, members of the public who have questions? No one online? All right, we have no need of a closed meeting today, so we are adjourned. Happy Halloween, everyone.